So, like people say that they have to, get settled before they get married, right? But I think
Hmm.
that's in the culture that we used to have, where only the guys used to work and the girl didn't. But I think in the new culture where both of them are working, do you think they can support each other at an earlier stage? Because let's say there's a guy who's earning, let's say 20,000 rupees a month, right, at his very
Hmm.
early age. So he can support a family with that. He and his wife can earn, 40,000 per month. I think they can start a family at least. Maybe don't have kids and all that, but don't you think it's
Mm.
easier for them to, go through their 20s and have more financial, more finances and also an emotional support?
I agree with that. I think there's no point in your life where you'd be able to say, yeah, I'm ready now to get married. I think that pressure is so, I don't know, like for me, I don't feel like I'd ever be able to get married, like be ready to be able to get married. I still
Hmm.
have this doubt in my heart where like, I don't know, there's this, there's that, there's a thousand things pop up. So talking financially, I think it's doable to be able to get married earlier, and I think it's about how mature you are financially and how you handle things. And if you both work together, I think it's doable.
But then again, this is when you actually like your spouse. So if you aren't in a good relation at the early stage, then it can be an hassle.
That's also a very important factor. Like you need to know the person you're gonna be living with. No, like someone back home you pick it.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd be able.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of a risk that can go both ways. But so that's why people don't want to take the risk very early on. They think that they already have too much on their plate.
So, there's a quick question coming up and I'm gonna ask Shahrukh Bhai to answer it. So, you come from mashallah religious family and stuff like that. So, your wife is still working, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, how did your parents react to the decision of your wife actually being working? I know that according to religion and Islam, that your women are allowed to work, but the stigma and the Pakistani typical Pakistani culture, women are not
Hmm.
usually allowed to work. So how did your parents react to this decision?
So actually, they were okay with it. The only thing that this, didn't like was when we would work late at night and we were in separate offices, and that rarely happens.
Shark Pie, can I ask you a personal question?
Sure, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so what if your parents were against her working like late or working at all? Would you still be supportive of her working? Would you allow it?
Yes, yes, but we will find ways that she could work and my parents won't be affected. So, for example, we can work from home. So actually, she's working right now behind my back. So
That's
so yeah, so there are ways to make everyone happy and still get your way, but it's not always easy. So,
Okay.
but I can understand where the question is coming from because I know many people who had this issue after their marriage. They weren't allowed to work and they actually got divorced because of that, because the woman especially wanted that now she's done so much in studies, spent so much of her parents money in studies, so she should at least have a payback and help her parents out at an older age. So yeah, that is an issue in Pakistan, but gladly that hasn't been the issue with us.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's also important here to state one point. For men specifically, there's a challenge here as well. Due to the culture that we have, which is sometimes very patriarchal, right? Like there's just a lot of responsibility laid down on the man to support the house, which isn't necessarily the right solution. There's also a lot of pressure on the man to solve a lot of the problems and conflicts between the parents and the wife. So if you don't listen to your parents, that's disrespectful. And if you don't listen to the wife, then that's just bad marriage.
a bad
Speaking,
situation.
it's a very difficult situation. Now, thankfully, personally speaking, I have my parents are really good about this. There's no force involved in our marriage, so it works out really well. But I know many people who have this challenge, and unfortunately, it's usually up to the guy to kind of manage these two very delicate relationships because we are basically at the center of a clash between two different generations, right? Our parents from a different generation, and then we're from a different generation where women are more empowered to step out there and help carry the house financially as well as emotionally. And that's not a bad thing in our modern thinking. Do you guys agree to that?
I would for
Maybe.
sure. Like that's why I'm a firm believer in the fact that your spouse should have their own relationship with your family. So like yes, you can be the middleman, but if my sister gets married to someone, right, like they're going to be a really important part of her life. So I should be friends with that. Like I should have a relationship with that person that is irrespective to my sister. So like they're my brother-in-law, right? Or like let's say with my mom, like that's going to be their mother-in-law. So if they have a relationship with that person, like a personal relationship, then it's much easier to let go of these differences. So I feel like oftentimes when the husband is the middleman between his mom and his wife, the communication can be weird. So it's like they should have a relationship without the husband because they do have a connection, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, because whenever my wife has to be alone with my mother-in-law, she can get very nervous. So
Right.
that's because of this. Yeah, that's because of this. Because she's used to being me around, and always having me go with her when she has to talk to my mother-in-law. So you're right, actually.
So fun fact, my aunt is Christian, the one that got married to my uncle. And my grandma wasn't okay with it for the longest time, but gradually they built their own relationship. So it's almost like she couldn't hate someone that she knew. So it's like, okay, now I know how this person works. Now I know how they are. And she would hang out with her more than she would my uncle after a point. So I feel like that's where my mindset comes from.
No, you're right, actually. Yeah, that's right.